What if one of the biggest reasons you feel emotionally exhausted is that you've been giving people access to parts of you they never earned the right to see? What if you've been explaining too much, revealing too much, defending too much, and sharing things that should have remained sacred? We are taught that honesty is always good, and honesty is important. But honesty does not mean total access. You can be an honest person and still have privacy. You can be loving and still have boundaries. You can be vulnerable and still be selective. Because not everyone who asks about your life deserves the deepest parts of it. Not everyone who listens to you is emotionally safe. Not everyone who knows your pain will know how to hold it with care. And sometimes, the healing you are looking for begins with learning what to keep for yourself. This is not about becoming secretive. It is not about distrusting everyone. It is not about hiding your authentic self. It is about understanding that vulnerability without discernment can become self-abandonment. Some parts of your life need witnesses, some need trusted people, and some need silence. Today I want to share 7 things you should be extremely careful about revealing to others. Not because these things are shameful, but because they are valuable, and what is valuable deserves protection. The first thing you should not reveal casually is your deepest insecurity. Think about the part of yourself you are most ashamed of. Maybe you're afraid of being abandoned. Maybe you secretly feel inadequate. Maybe you fear that you are not attractive enough, not successful enough, not intelligent enough. Maybe you're terrified of being alone. Maybe deep inside, you constantly wonder whether people really love you. These are very human fears. There's nothing wrong with having them. But the question is, who knows about them? Because when you reveal a deep insecurity to someone you trust, it can create intimacy. But when you reveal it to someone who's manipulative, competitive, emotionally immature, or simply careless, you may be handing them information they can later use against you. Some people collect your vulnerabilities. They remember where you are sensitive. They learn what you fear. And when conflict comes, they know exactly where to strike. This is why healing requires discernment. You do not need to hide your insecurities from everyone. You need to stop handing your deepest wounds to people who have not demonstrated emotional safety. Ask, has this person shown that they can hold vulnerable information without using it against me? Do they respect boundaries? Do they keep confidences? Do they take responsibility when they hurt you? Do they listen without mocking? Do they remain respectful even when they disagree? Trust should be earned through behavior, not granted because someone seems friendly. And remember something important. Having a vulnerability does not mean you have to announce it. You can work on yourself privately. You can speak with a qualified therapist. You can talk to a deeply trusted person. You can journal. You can reflect. Not every wound needs a public audience. The second thing you should be careful about revealing is every detail of your future plans. This may surprise you. We often feel excited about something and immediately want to tell everyone. I'm starting a business. I'm leaving my job. I'm moving. I'm going back to school. I'm changing my life. I have a big goal. And sharing your dream can feel good. People congratulate you. You feel validated. But sometimes talking extensively about a goal gives you an emotional reward before you've done the work. You announce the plan, you receive praise, you imagine the future, you feel successful for a moment. And that emotional satisfaction can reduce the urgency to actually build. There's another issue. Not everyone wants you to grow. Some people consciously support you, some unconsciously prefer the version of you they already understand. Your growth may challenge their expectations. Your ambition may trigger their insecurity. Your independence may change the relationship. And suddenly, you find yourself defending your plan instead of building it. This is why some goals are better protected during their early stages. You do not need to announce every seed before it becomes a tree. Sometimes silence protects momentum. Work quietly. Let results speak. And when you do share your plans, choose people who give you useful feedback rather than people who only give you emotional noise. The third thing you should not reveal casually is every detail of your relationship. This is one of the most common mistakes people make. You have an argument with your partner. You become angry. So you tell your friend everything. You describe what they said, what they did, how terrible you feel. Your friend becomes angry too. And eventually you and your partner repair the relationship. But your friend still remembers everything you said when you were angry. They may never see your partner the same way again. This is why emotional privacy matters. Relationships contain complexity. A person can hurt you and still love you. You can be angry and still care. Someone can make a mistake without being a terrible human being. But when you tell the most one-sided version of a conflict to multiple people, you can unintentionally create a permanent narrative around a temporary problem. This doesn't mean you should stay silent about abuse, coercion, manipulation, or serious harm. In those situations, telling safe people and seeking professional or appropriate support is important. But ordinary relationship conflict requires discernment. Ask, am I sharing this because I need wise support or because I want validation while I'm angry? There is a difference. Sometimes you don't need 10 opinions. You need one safe person, or a therapist, or a calm conversation with the person involved. Not every argument needs an audience. The fourth thing you should protect is your deepest emotional healing. This may sound strange because we live in an age where people share everything about their healing journey, their trauma, their therapy, their childhood, their spiritual experiences, their emotional breakthroughs. Sometimes this openness is beautiful, but healing is also vulnerable, and not every person needs a front row seat. Your healing may involve grief that isn't ready for public discussion. You may be working through anger. You may be learning boundaries. You may be recovering from a painful relationship. You may be changing your understanding of yourself. During this process, too much outside input can interfere. Someone says, you should forgive them. Someone else says, cut them off. Another person says, stop thinking about the past. Another says, you need to confront them. And suddenly your healing becomes a committee meeting. You are trying to hear your own voice beneath everyone else's opinions. This is why some healing needs privacy, not secrecy. Privacy. There is a difference. Secrecy says, I must hide because I am ashamed. Privacy says, this process is important, and I am choosing carefully who I invite into it. Your healing does not need to be publicly validated to be real. You're allowed to grow quietly. You're allowed to change your boundaries without announcing the entire history behind them. You're allowed to discover something about yourself without immediately explaining it to everyone. Sometimes, silence gives insight enough space to become yours. The fifth thing you should be careful about revealing is your deepest financial details to people who have not earned that trust. How much you earn, how much you have saved, what you own, your debts, your investments, your financial plans, your inheritance. Money can change relationships quickly. Some people become competitive. Some become entitled. Some begin judging you. Some begin asking for things. Some begin treating you differently. And sometimes the people around you make assumptions about your life based on numbers they were never entitled to know. There's nothing shameful about financial success. There's nothing shameful about financial struggle. But privacy can protect you from unnecessary complications. This doesn't mean you should hide financial information from your spouse, financial advisor, accountant, lawyer, or other professionals where transparency is necessary. It means not everyone in your social circle needs a financial report. Financial privacy is not deception, it is discernment. And especially when you're building something, Protecting your resources and limiting unnecessary attention can be wise. The sixth thing you should not reveal casually is every mistake you have ever made. There's a difference between taking responsibility and repeatedly advertising your shame. You can apologize, you can learn, you can repair, you can change. But you do not have to turn your worst moments into permanent labels. Some people confess every embarrassing detail because they are trying to prove that they are honest. But honesty is not self-exposure without boundaries. You're allowed to become a different person. You're allowed to outgrow your past. You're allowed to say, "That was a mistake I made," without saying, "That is who I am." This matters psychologically, because if you constantly tell others the story of your worst choices, eventually you may begin believing that story is your identity. Maybe you were once irresponsible. That doesn't mean you have to remain irresponsible. Maybe you once stayed in unhealthy relationships. That doesn't mean you are incapable of healthy love. Maybe you once made destructive decisions. That doesn't mean your future must repeat them. Your mistakes can teach you without owning you. And some parts of your past are simply not relevant to the people you meet today. You do not owe everyone a complete archive of your history. The seventh, and perhaps deepest thing to protect, is your inner voice. Your deepest dreams, your private intuitions, your values, the ideas that are still becoming. Because something fragile happens when you constantly ask everyone else what you should think. What career should I choose? Should I leave this relationship? Am I making the right decision? Do you think this is a good idea? What would you do? Advice can help. Community matters. Wise people matter. But if you outsource every decision, you slowly lose contact with your own judgment. You begin living through borrowed opinions. This person thinks you should stay. That person thinks you should leave. This person thinks you're too sensitive. That person thinks you're not sensitive enough. Everyone has an opinion, but you are the one living the life. Your inner voice deserves development, not blind trust, disciplined attention. You learn to ask, what do I actually know? What do I value? What are the facts? What does my body tell me? What are the consequences? What choice aligns with the person I want to become? Then you can seek advice, but the advice informs your decision. It doesn't replace your decision. And perhaps this is what emotional maturity really looks like. You become open without becoming porous. You become vulnerable without becoming exposed. You become compassionate without becoming responsible for everyone. You become private without becoming secretive. You become independent without becoming isolated. And if this message resonates with you, comment 777. Let 777 mean, I will protect what is sacred in my life. I will stop explaining myself to everyone. I will choose trust carefully. I will become more discerning about who receives access to me. Again, the number itself is not magic. The meaning comes from the intention behind it. Now there is something important I want to clarify. Never reveal does not literally mean never tell anyone. That would be unhealthy. Human beings need connection. We need trusted relationships. We sometimes need professional support. And there are moments when speaking is essential. If you are being abused, threatened, manipulated, or harmed, silence is not the answer. Tell safe people. Seek appropriate professional, medical, legal, or emergency support when necessary. Your safety comes before privacy. The real principle is not secrecy, it is discernment. Do not confuse privacy with isolation. You need people. You just need the right people. Think about trust as a series of doors. Not everyone gets the same level of access. The outer door may contain ordinary information, your interests, your work, your hobbies. The next door may contain personal experiences. The next may contain vulnerabilities. The deepest door contains your wounds, fears, dreams, values, and private inner world. People earn deeper access over time through consistency, respect, integrity, discretion. How someone handles your small boundaries tells you how they may handle your big ones, so pay attention. Does this person gossip about everyone? They may gossip about you. Do they constantly expose other people's secrets? Be careful. Do they make jokes about vulnerability? Be careful. Do they disappear when you need them? Be careful. Do they pressure you to reveal more than you're comfortable sharing? Be careful. Do they respect your no? That matters. Do they protect your privacy when you're not in the room? That matters even more. Trust is demonstrated, not declared. And perhaps one of the biggest mistakes people make is confusing emotional intensity with emotional safety. Someone can make you feel deeply understood in one conversation and still not be capable of protecting your vulnerability. Someone can tell you everything about themselves and create the feeling that you must do the same. You don't. Their openness does not obligate you to reveal your own secrets. You are allowed to say, "I'd rather keep that private." You don't need a long explanation. That sentence is enough. Another important principle is that privacy should not become a tool for manipulation. Don't hide important information from people who have a legitimate right to know it. In committed relationships, honesty matters. In professional situations, transparency matters. When someone's safety depends on accurate information, be truthful. The lesson is not hide everything. The lesson is share appropriately. There is a difference. And there's another subtle benefit to keeping certain things private. Sometimes privacy allows your intentions to become stronger. When you talk about a dream too early, you invite opinions before you've developed your own. When you discuss a new relationship with everyone, you can create noise around something that needs space to grow. When you share every emotional breakthrough, you may start performing your healing instead of experiencing it. When you announce every goal, you may start working for the applause instead of the purpose. Silence can protect authenticity. You do not need an audience for every transformation. Some of the most important changes in your life will happen when nobody knows. You will quietly become more disciplined, quietly stop chasing, quietly learn to say no, quietly rebuild your confidence, quietly choose healthier people, quietly change your relationship with yourself. And one day, people will notice, not because you announced the transformation, because they can feel it. Your energy is different, your choices are different, your boundaries are different. You no longer need to explain. That is power, not secrecy, self-possession. So ask yourself, where am I oversharing because I want validation? Where am I explaining because I'm afraid of being misunderstood? Where am I revealing something because I want someone to rescue me? Who has actually earned access to my vulnerability? And perhaps the most important question, do I trust this person because of what they say or because of what they consistently do? That question alone can protect you from many painful experiences. Because some people are excellent at saying, "You can tell me anything." But the better question is, what have they done with the vulnerable information I've already given them? That is the evidence. And perhaps you also need to ask yourself another question. Do I know how to keep things sacred? In a world where everything is shared immediately, sacredness can feel unusual. A private dream, a quiet prayer, a personal goal, a healing process, a relationship, a decision, a part of your story. Something does not become less real because fewer people know about it. In fact, sometimes it becomes more real because you're doing it for yourself rather than for recognition. And this is where your inner life can become stronger. You stop living in response to the audience. You stop asking, "What will people think?" and start asking, "What feels true?" That does not mean ignoring wisdom from others. It means not allowing the crowd to become your conscience. You can listen, you can learn, you can seek guidance, and still make your own decisions. There's another thing I want you to remember. People do not need complete access to understand your boundary. You can stop answering personal questions. You can change the subject. You can say, I'd rather keep that private. You can say, I'm still figuring that out. You can say, I don't want to discuss that. You can say, it's personal. You can say nothing at all. Silence is also a boundary. And sometimes the most powerful answer is not an explanation. It is the absence of one. Because people who are used to your over-explaining may keep asking questions simply because you keep giving them more information. The moment you stop, the dynamic changes. Now there's a deeper psychological reason this matters. Oversharing can sometimes be a way of regulating anxiety. You feel misunderstood, so you explain more, then more, then more. You hope that if you provide enough information, the other person will finally understand your intentions. But often, the more you explain, the more vulnerable you become to being judged. And you still may not receive the understanding you wanted. So learn to tolerate being misunderstood, not when something important needs clarification, but when you've already communicated clearly and someone simply doesn't like your answer. You don't have to keep talking until they agree. Your boundary does not become more valid because someone approves it. That is emotional freedom. And perhaps the deepest thing you should never reveal carelessly is the belief that someone else is responsible for your identity. Don't hand someone else the power to define who you are. Not your partner, not your parents, not your friends, not strangers, not the internet, not the person who rejected you, not the person who criticized you. Their opinions are information. They are not your final authority. You can hear, "You're too much," and think, "Perhaps I need a relationship with someone who values my depth." Someone says, "You've changed," and you think, "Yes, I am allowed to change." Someone says, "Why are you so private now?" And you think, "Because I have learned that access is earned." That is not arrogance, it is self-knowledge. So protect your inner world, not because the world is always dangerous, because your inner world deserves care. And perhaps this is the deepest lesson. The healthiest people are not necessarily the people who have no secrets. They are people who understand the difference between secrecy and privacy. Secrecy hides what must be exposed. Privacy protects what deserves protection. You can be honest without being exposed. You can be vulnerable without telling everyone everything. You can love people without giving them unlimited access to your inner life. You can trust without abandoning discernment. You can share without oversharing. And you can remain deeply connected while still having a private self. So before you reveal something personal, pause for a moment. Ask, why am I sharing this? Who am I sharing it with? How has this person handled my trust before? What happens if this information leaves the room? Will sharing help me? Will it create unnecessary complications? And do I actually want to share this, or am I seeking approval? That pause can change everything. You don't need to become suspicious. You need to become discerning, because not everyone deserves the same version of you. Some people deserve your kindness. Some deserve your friendship. Some deserve your professional collaboration. Some deserve your love. A very small number may deserve access to your deepest emotional world. And that is okay. You are not cold for having layers. You are human. So protect your peace. Protect your plans. Protect your healing. Protect your finances, protect your vulnerabilities, protect your private relationships, protect your inner voice, and most importantly, protect your ability to choose who gets access. Because access is not a right, it is a privilege earned through trust. And perhaps when you stop giving everyone access to your deepest parts, you will discover something unexpected. You will have more energy, less explaining, less regret, less emotional noise, more clarity, more privacy, more peace, and more space to become yourself. You don't need everyone to know your story. You need to know your story. You don't need everyone to understand your healing. You need to live it. You don't need everyone to approve your choices. You need to stand by the choices that align with your values. And perhaps the greatest form of maturity is knowing that some things become more powerful when they remain yours. Quiet, protected, sacred. So share wisely, trust slowly, love deeply, set clear boundaries, and never confuse being open-hearted with being completely exposed. Your life is yours, your dreams are yours, your healing is yours, your inner world is yours. Let people earn their way into it. And when someone has earned that trust, share honestly. But when they haven't, you can simply smile and say, that's personal. You don't need to feel guilty. You don't need to explain. You don't need to apologize. You are allowed to keep some parts of your life sacred. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are.